Purim, the holiday of Purim. In the Megillah Esther, this we read on Purim. We read it twice, in the nighttime and in the daytime. In the Megillah of Purim, Dartzel, that tells the story, the Torah, the Totzaos, mitten Sachakol, from the Nes, was given Purim. It talks about the conclusion, right near in the end, the last chapter, right near the end of the Megillah. And so it tells the whole story about how that King Achashverosh killed his wife, and he looked for a new wife, and he decided to marry Esther, and Esther was a Jewess, and her uncle Mordechai, according to some opinions, it was even her husband. Mordechai told her not to reveal that she's a Jew. Mordechai was like the Lubavitcher Rebbe of our generation. That was what Mordechai was back then. He said not to reveal. And all of a sudden pops up Haman, and Haman convinces the king to kill all the Jews. And it's a really big problem. What are they going to do? All the Jews, there's a decree put on the wall that in 1 year from today, all the Jews everybody has permission to kill all the Jews. The Jews have no permission to fight back. Any Jew caught with arms or weapons or something like that, no Second Amendment, you can't arm yourself. So the Jews were in a pretty bad situation. They didn't know what to do. And there was nowhere to run. There was nowhere to run. The Achashverosh ruled the whole world, and the Jews were supposed to get killed in 1 day. All of them. And all the Jews, there was no time to run. So what did they do? So it says that Esther, she went, and Mordechai said, you got to go and talk to the king. So Esther says, okay, let's fast for 3 days. And she fasts for 3 days, and she goes into the king, and she was supposed to have been killed on the spot because nobody is allowed to go into the king unless they're invited. And she wasn't invited. So she goes into the king uninvited, fasts for 3 days, looks terrible. It says in the Talmud that a person that fasts for 3 days has a terrible smell from his mouth, from his body. She went into the king 3 days, and all of a sudden the king said, wow, he really said, this is something else. Why didn't I invite her earlier? And she says, I want to make a meal with just me and you and Haman together. And he said, okay. So they made a meal for the Haman. And this was like on Passover. That year, the Jews fasted for 3 days. They didn't eat on Passover that year. So she made this meal. And what's the outcome of the king said, tell me, what did you make this meal for? Do you want to say? He said, yeah. She said, I want to make another meal tomorrow. And also with Haman. So the next day, she tells the king, listen, your majesty, you like me? He said, what's the question? I love you. He said, well, you should know that I'm Jewish. And there's somebody that wants to destroy all of my people and kill. He says, who is that? She said, Haman. And the king said, oh, Haman, kill him. And Haman was hung up. And all of a sudden, the king said, now I'm going to give the Jews permission. I already made the decree that to kill the Jews. But I'm going to give the Jews permission to fight back. So he gave the Jews permission to fight back. And so it was a year later, all the non-Jews, a lot of the non-Jews, they left the idea, but the non-Jews, they tried to make a war against the Jews, and anyone who tried to make war against the Jews, they lost. They were killed. Not one Jew was killed. It was a tremendous victory for the Jews. Achashverosh gives all of the riches of Haman, he gives it to Esther, and the Jews, and it says, the Jews, ora v'simcha v'sasan v'yekar. It says, La Yehudim hayasa ora v'simcha v'sasan v'yekar. The Jews had light, joy, happiness, and honor. Zaktav in the Gemara says, what does it mean that they had these 4 things? Ora, or they had light, that's the Torah. Simcha, joy, that's the Yom Tov, that's holidays. Soson, happiness, this is circumcision, bris milah. V'yekar, these are tefillin. The fear zachen, these 4 things. 4 things. Torah, Yom Tov, holidays, circumcision, and tefillin. Putting the tefillin, the boxes, put them on the head. That's what the Gemara says. Zayin, and these 4 things, they are signs, zeichenin, v'chazayin, the verbund from Yidden mit Nebeshter. These 4 things show the connection between the Jews, the unique connection between the Jews and God. Right? Jews are God's chosen people. They have these four things really symbolize this. Haman, Russia, Haman had Gozer given. Haman had made a decree as Yidden sollen nit mekayim sein at deferet zachen. Haman wanted, first of all, that the Jews shouldn't do these four things. But had nit gewalt, because he didn't want, you can't, late and he couldn't bear, was the Yidden zeichen in sich oif alle Völker, that the Jews were different from all the other people. Durch seine Verbund mit Nebester, because of their connection with God. He couldn't bear this. We said that Haman was from Amalek, and Haman hated God for no reason. So he said, good, he hated the Jews also. But he said, at least the Jews don't remind me about your connection with God. Don't remind me. And these things, maybe more than anything else, show the connection of the Jews with God. Torah, holidays, Yom Tov, bris milah, circumcision, and tefillin. Durch seine Verbund mit neighbors. Wenn sie es geschehen, their Nes from Purim, when it occurred, the miracle of Purim, und men is pater gewen, and we finally were rid of Haman mit seinen Geseres, with the decrees. So then it says, that's what it says, that when we were rid of Haman, then it says the Jews had these four things. They had Or of a Simcha of Soson and Yekar. They had the Torah. They rejoiced with the Torah, with the holidays, with the bris milah, with the circumcision, and with tefillin. Okay, we'll see why these four things we want to see. Excuse me. When you make a sign, you want to make a sign that you're special, from from its zach. You want to separate something from other things. The sign has to be noch in der Zach und nicht in the Zweiter. It has to be that you make a sign in this thing and the other. Let's say you have 5 sheep, and you want to see which sheep is mine. They're all white. They're all the same. So you make a black mark on one of them. Right? You have 50 cars. They all look exactly the same. So you tie a little ribbon on the on the top of your car, and that shows that this is your car, not oibdeos. But if you make a sign which is equal, the same thing as everybody else, so therefore it's not a basic difference between that thing and another, right? If everybody has, you decide, well, I'm gonna everybody has a red ribbon tied on their auto. I'm going to tie a red ribbon on my car, but everybody has a red ribbon. Says, yeah, but that's a sign, right? A red ribbon is a sign, and I'm also making a sign. But you won't be able to tell your car from anybody else's car. It has to be a different type of a sign that the others don't have. The Zelba is Vishas, men read it, Vegan, the Os, the same thing. These 4 things are different from the Jewish people, from everybody else. Darf doch dem durch a zoide Sachen, it has to be in such a way, mehr nit wie bei Yidden. It has to be in a different way than by the Jews. The Jews have to do something that's totally different. Let's take the example of the car. You say, okay, I'm not going to tie a red ribbon. I'm going to tie a green ribbon. He says, yeah, but look at everybody else got the same idea. Everybody else has a different color ribbon tied on their car. Do something that's not a ribbon, right? Instead of put on top of your car a magnet or something on the top of your car, right? Leave the hood open. Do something that's different on your car, that's totally different than the others. Don't do something that's similar, just a little, right? Everybody, this guy has a green flag, this guy's a red flag, and you're going to put a purple flag. So you'll have to remember that it's purple. It's not enough of a difference. The poil, if you want to signify the Jewish people different from everybody else, so it has to be in a way that's really different, totally different. The poil or zet man is the alafir zachin. These 4 things: Torah, Yom Tov, Milah, and Tefillin. They also exist by the non-Jews. For instance, Torah. By all of the non-Jews, all the religions, they all have their books. Goyim, also the other religions, anderen learning, they have in a way that they should know with their intelligence, which is in Torah. The non-Jews also, for instance, the non-Jews, not only do they have their Bibles, but they also, some of them even have the Torah. In fact, the Torah is a book you can buy in any bookstore. It's in every library. Like it says, and they can understand the wisdom of the Torah. Like it says, as oich le'nei ha'amim, even in the eyes of the non-Jews, is Torah grace azach. The Torah is a high thing. If so, the Torah is not something that's unique to the Jewish people. First of all, other nations, they have their own Torah, other religions, and also the Torah can be learned by everybody. Everybody can understand the wisdom of the Torah. It's not only for the Jews. Same thing with holidays. Oich goyim, also by non-Jews, they also have their holidays. It's like they have their what is it? New Year's Day, and they have their what is it, Independence Day, and etc. Azoyach Milah, the same thing as by circumcision. By the non-Jews, in most countries, most civilized countries in the world, they circumcise children. It's not the bris, but they made circumcised for health purposes. Also with tefillin, just like Jews have tefillin on their arm and then their head to assign to God, as all by means of putting on tefillin, you can see all the people that the name of God is on us. Well, the other religions also they have their signs. They also have signs. This person wears something around his neck. This person has this. There's a turban, puts a turban on his head, puts a turban. Also, they have certain signs which show on their nationality or their religion. Is doch nicht verstandig. So it's not so really clear. When God said that Jews should make a sign to show that they are different people, as he should have made some sort of a sign which is totally different from the non-Jews, that has no connection to them whatsoever. Und the Aber gemonter für inyanim. And God shouldn't have made these four things, that these are the signs, which these four signs have epithets. It's a little bit similar to the other nations, right? The other nations, what are the four signs? Torah and the holidays and circumcision and tefillin. Well, non-Jews also, they can learn the Torah. They can even learn the Torah of the Jews. Non-Jews also, they have their holidays. They don't have holidays? Of course they do. Non-Jews, all the other nations, the other religions, they can do circumcision also. In America, it's very rare to find a person that's not circumcised. And also the same thing is with tefillin. The non-Jews also have their sign, so we have a different sign. The unclear that there is like this. When darf man having a sign? Why do you have to have a sign? Dividing yourself from someone else. Only the shas that zwei haben epis ähnlich zwei zitten dich. When they are something similar to one another, then is when you have to have a sign. Dann darf man haben a zeichen. Then you have to have a sign that to make them unique. But if there's no really, if the things are totally unlike, for instance, you don't have to make a sign to tell, which is a man, which is a dog. You can obviously see. Only with two men that are similar, do you have to make a sign. If the two cars are similar, then you have to make a sign. But then you have to make a sign. And the sign itself has to be a sign that's really, truly unique. Let's see what it is. Thus, this means as these signs, which are the Jewish people, which they have, the Torah, the holidays, the circumcision, and the tefillin, these have to be things which signify the difference between the soul of a Jew and the other people. That's where the Jews are different. The difference between the Jews and the other people is not physical. Therefore, the signs that we have can be similar, because that's not the sign. The thing is how we do them, what they stand for. The Jewish soul is different. Because mitzad the neshama, because the soul is melechatchila nit kind for gleich. There's no comparison whatsoever between a Jew and a non-Jew. The osios, these signs, they come in order to show that the Jewish body, the Jewish body from the other bodies of the non-Jews that seem to be similar, but we're not. Oyser licher is their is their goof enlich, because externally the Jewish body is similar to non-Jewish bodies. But oich their goof, because a body from a Jew in physical is exactly the same. You can take a heart transplant for a Jew and put it into a non-Jew, and the other way around. The bodies are the same. But therefore, that's why we have to make the sign. Oiv zet zich nit kein chiluk, from the Yiddish goof, you can't see any difference between a Jewish body and a non-Jewish body. Therefore, you have to make a sign. That's where the sign comes in. then comes the sign to show, as oich the gashmis, that even the physical body of a Jew is in God's sense is totally different from the physical body of a non-Jew. How do we see it? We'll see. And because as the osios come in, so and because these signs come to show the holiness of the Jewish body, therefore, Zayin and Oich, Azelcha, therefore, the signs have to be such, was with externally, with externally, Zayin and Zefaran, Oich Bayom was Olam, the non-Jews also have. And from deswegen, nevertheless, Zayin and Zebayidin in ganz and anders, by the Jews, is totally different. In other words, these signs of the Jews seem to be different, seem to be similar, really they're totally different. Just like the Jewish body seems to be similar, but really it's totally different. And these signs come to show it. Which this indicates as the Gashmistika, what's this? I don't see it. This is a tet or a samach. Okay. With your physical actions and deeds, vasayin and verbunden, which are connected to the physical body, in other words, putting on tefillin, doing the bris milah, the zelba pulos was getan, which are done by the non-Jews, right? A yid a Jew eats, a non-Jew eats, a Jew sleeps, and lahavdil, a non-Jew sleeps. A Jew does business, and a non-Jew, etc. But by a Jew, even the physical things are totally different. By Yidden, by Jews, Zayin and Oich, the Gashmis, the physical things are holy. In all of your ways, you should know God. Because Nidblo is not only from Mokta Yid, Kedusha and Zir, not only does a Jew contain holiness in himself, because it is not just an additional thing to his being, nor the etzem mahus, but rather, no, it's not that we have holiness inside of us. The essence of a Jew, his body, his actions is holy. Und the Rebbe, and therefore, Father Zich from the Yidden, therefore a Jew has to as Allah sein and yanin, that everything that he does, even the things which are just similar to the non-Jews, should be holy. That's why the land of Israel is called the Holy Land. And the Jewish people are the holy people. The Torah is a holy Torah. Oiv them, holy is different. You can say, what do you mean? The land of Israel is just a land, like every it's like New Jersey. It's a land. And the Jewish people, they have bodies just like everybody else. And the Torah is a book in the library. What are you talking about holy? It says that's what these signs come to show. And the whole essence of Purim is that it's totally not true. And not only is it not true, but the welfare and the well-being and the blessing and meaning in the world depends on the holiness of the Jews. And we'll see. Or if then, was the Gemara says, Ora the Torah, let's take an example. The Torah says what? Ora v'simcha v'Soson and Yekar. The Jews were happy for these four things. Ora, that says that's Torah. Freckman, we can ask, Torah, Vert Alamal and Gerufen, Mitten Namen, the Torah is called Or. It's called Or, light, Lashon Zachar. For was, and here it says Ora. Torah, right? What is it? Ora, the Simcha, Ora. The Torah is always called Or in masculine gender. Why all of a sudden does it say the Jews in Purim, they had Ora, that's the Torah, that's feminine. And for them, the Alter Rebbe says, as here when it's talking about the Torah, it's not talking about the written Torah. It's talking about the oral Torah. Z is makabel from Torah because it's feminine, it receives from the written Torah. The Rebbe, therefore, it says Ora Lashon Nekeva. The unterschied, the division, the difference between the written Torah and the oral Torah, the Gemara, the Talmud, the Mishnah, is Torah Shebechtav. The written Torah is higher in that it's higher from intellect. All of it, everybody knows that the Torah, the written Torah, God gave the Torah. God gave the Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai. And so, therefore, selbstverständlich, it's self-understood as the tzuga from Torah. Therefore, the approach to Torah, the written Torah, has to be not with your own intellect, right, and your own sort of investigations and etc. and philosophies, but you have to. The main approach to the Torah has to be with faith. This comes from God. Again, opposing to this, right, has to be according to the Kegen. Opposite to this is Torah Shabbal Peh, which is the oral Torah, the explanation of the Torah. Is the Iranian, its thing is Iranian is to clear to explain with human intellect the that which it says in very short words, just in hints in the written Torah. Onazoi oich to oiser learn, and also to learn laws which come from the laws of the Torah, which are not written specifically. For instance, the 10 Commandments, it says you should keep Shabbos. What are you supposed to do? Doesn't say. When is Shabbos? Doesn't say. You're supposed to keep every Shabbos according to the 10 Commandments. It just says 6 days work and 1 day, maybe just 1 day of your life, any day you want, just rest on that day. Work for 6 days. That's what it could be. The oral Torah comes and it explains what it means Shabbat and what's forbidden on Shabbat and what's permissible on Shabbat and what's a commandment on Shabbat. The oral Torah comes to explain with intellect and bringing it, what it says in that really in that it comes to explain to us that in the written Torah, this is what it says. Is therefore it's understood as euch by an andere Fall darf sein derselbe din. That if it's this law here, it should be if this law is like that, if it says like this in the Torah, so it implies this and etc. In other words, it uses logic. So it comes out that what's called the oral Torah, the Talmud, is an inyan versus abgegeben geworden zu seichel. It's a thing which is according to intellect. Und für deswegen, and nevertheless, is there Zugang, but what should be the approach of a Jew to the oral Torah, to the Talmud? It has to be the Torah mit emunah, faith. Faith. Und man pasken nit wie es kommt ois an der seichel. You might look at the Torah and say, this is what I think, right? And so I'll do according to what I think. The written Torah is given. Everybody can do what they want. There's no, not so. There's the Talmud. You have to learn what the Talmud says. And these people, they decide. What do you mean? These are people just like me. How should I, they should decide and I can't decide. Why not? I know as much as they do. Here even more. They're arguing between themselves. Beit Shammai says one thing, Beit Hillel says the other thing. I'm also going to say something. I have my opinion also, right? I'll do opinion. That's the way you could approach the oral Torah. Afilu v'nezainen, even when it is so im da verstanding starke rayos, even though you have really good proofs, or nachmi is da stira, but if there's a contradiction, if what you think is opposite what the Rishonim and the Acharonim, what they say and what the law is that they decided from the Talmud, bizafilu bizamana Mishnah, even the Mishnah and the Tanaim, the law, this is the law, as you have to go, therefore, nekabel ladin yesh tshuva, therefore you have to do what they say. Can man the time a person can say mistate it says volt sich 1 second se tish 1 second, give me one moment. Oh, this is a long one. 1 second, give me a moment. Here. Right, okay. Oh, how could it possibly be? She says this must be a word in Russian. Teach. I don't know. There's a word must be in Russian maybe. Anyway, can it possibly be? Volzich is gehandelt wegen an inyan from Torah shebechtav. If it was talking about something that's written in the oral Torah, the written Torah, is das nit given as a seichel. This is a thing which is above understanding. Welcher aber is in Torah shebechtav. It state nit der din beferush. It doesn't say clearly, right? What does it say in the Torah? You should put on tefillin. What does it say that in the Torah you should put on tefillin? It says you have to put a sign between your eyes. I'm going to make a little dot between my eyes. It doesn't say it differently. But in the Talmud, it says you shouldn't. Nor see is an inyan from Torah Shabbal Peh. Vos is Ibr given, which was given to human intelligence, and therefore it says that you should decide what, and this was decided from hundreds of years, even 1,000 years before. They had their own way of thinking. And because now times have changed and I have my own ideas, so therefore I don't have to listen to them. The answer to this is that you have to, the attitude toward the oral Torah, which is logic, has to be in a way of faith. That's what these people were. These people that decided in the oral Torah, these people were totally above any sort of logic and understood these holy people. Let's just do this one more. Is the end for of them? This is the Zugang from Yidden to Torah Shabbal Peh is Emunah. The approach that you have to the laws of the Torah and to the explanations of the Torah is given in the Talmud. It has to be with faith, and it has to be with the fear of God. In other words, even what it says here logically, it's really above my logic. It's above understanding. It's above human logic. Vida Chazal, like it says, Kol sheyirat chetu kadam the chachmas chachma miskayemes. It says if a person that's afraid of sin before he uses his mind, then his human ideas they are sustained. They exist. They last. In other words, when we're dealing with Torah, the basis, the foundation has to be the fear of God. Then, after you have real fear of God, then you can use your own mind, right? And you're always thinking, is this really right, what I've concluded? Is it right or not? Let me check up. You have to use chachmas, you have to use your mind. Das is doch it's the oral Torah. Chachma and seichel, it's all intellect and logic. But in order for this logic to exist, I mean, we've had so many different movements in Judaism that have tried to destroy Judaism by destroying the oral Torah, by destroying the Talmud. And none of them have really lasted, at least not lasted as far as Judaism is concerned. Then can the Chachma have an Akiyum when? Only if it's based on the fear of God and the fear of sin. Then a person that has a fear of doing the wrong thing, if it comes by him first, then his wisdom will stand. This is what it means that the Jews had aura, means light, that the Torah, it's talking about the oral Torah. In this way, the Jews are totally different from the non-Jews, and the Torah is totally different from any of the other. The logical ideas that are understood by logic are above logic. And even if your logic contradicts it and seems to be superior to it, nevertheless, if this is what was decided in the oral Torah, then this is the law. This is not normal. This is the essence of the Jewish people, as we'll talk about, God willing, tomorrow. Tomorrow there will be a class in Likuti Sichot at 8:15, from 8:15 to 9, and we'll finish this Sikh of the Rebbe. Thank you very much for joining. You should have a good day with Mashiach now.